welcome to Labour Lens. I am Sharon Ijason. On this week's edition of the program, we'll continue our conversation on the issue of national minimum wage and how it affects workers. We will be right back.
Uneasy calm reigns as Labour leaders take charge of the gates of the courts in the nation's capital. Workers at the Supreme Court, as in other courts, have shunned work, leaving only policemen and private security guards stationed to maintain law and order. The workers are demanding that state governors immediately and unconditionally obey the executive order signed by Mr. President directing financial autonomy for the judiciary. So far, they say the industrial action has been effective. Their appeal is that their one-point demand is met.
They should be mindful that we are talking of constitution of this country, where governors uphold, they swore to uphold that constitution. Now they are breaching it. I think it's an impeachable offense. So Nigerians should look at it and rise up for these abnormalities.
The strike has been so fruitful because the impact has been felt. Nationwide, there's full compliance of all judiciary staff.
We're still waiting for the government to respond. As soon as something tangible is being done, definitely the strike will be called off. We believe that the government should call for negotiations based on our demand. Principally, our demand is about autonomy.
While the workers tackle the governors, lawyers and other Nigerians long for an immediate end to the strike.
It feels bad because I came to actually collect my seal, what I applied for, MBA seal that I applied for. It feels quite bad that the court is not operating, and it's disappointing.
To withdraw the services of our members anywhere found in any polytechnic or monotechnic across the length and breadth of this nation.
Yet another round of inactivity at the nation's polytechnics and monotechnics as academic staff announced they are downing tools indefinitely. The polytechnic teachers say they have been more than patient 13 months after an initial ultimatum. At a news conference declaring the strike, the union accuses the federal and state governments of neglecting technological education subsector. They list a 13-point demand that must be acceded to before they can return to the classrooms. These include non-implementation of needs assessment report of 2014, non-recomposition of governing councils in federal polytechnics, and many state-owned institutions alleged victimization of union leaders.
In 2017, when our union also went on strike, the government promised to release the sum of 25 billion naira as revitalization fund to commence this level of intervention. But as we speak, nearly 4 years down the line, not a penny has also been released.
Moments after the teachers announced the national industrial action, the Minister of Education calls them to a round table.
Has received any form of funds.
The meeting lasts barely an hour, with assurances of an imminent end to the strike by the minister.
The president has approved the councils for all the polytechnics, and I think we are just waiting for this break to pass. I believe they will be released immediately. And I assure you, all these 13 points will be looked into carefully, and I believe you will be called for the meeting of the Rapid Response Committee in the shortest possible time.
But the meeting is not enough to put the strike on hold.
What happened here today is the commencement of a process of resolution of the issues. And so until the issues are resolved to the satisfaction of the members of our union as represented by the National Executive Council of the union, we cannot be talking about suspension of a strike.
Other demands of the union are non-release of 10 months arrears of minimum wage and non-payment of salaries in some state-owned institutions. The teachers say they will return to work only after all their demands are satisfactorily met.
The Maritime Workers Union of Nigeria has issued a 7-day ultimatum to the federal government to compel the international oil companies IOCs over refusal to allow stevedoring companies and dock workers into their operational areas as required by law in the past 8 years. In a statement signed by the President General and Secretary General of the Maritime Workers Union of Nigeria, Adeyanju Adewale and Felix Akingboye warned that if at the expiration of the ultimatum the union's demands is not met, all port operations nationwide should be shut down until demands are met. The union lamented alleged silence of the Nigerian Port Authority, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, and the federal government to the non-compliance of the IOCs to extant stevedoring regulations and the Marine Government Notice of Number 106 on Stevedoring Regulations 2014 issued by the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency (NIMASA). The union alleged that dock workers have been denied the opportunity to earn wages. Rather, the IOCs have flooded the operational areas with foreigners at the expense of local workers and in breach of statutory regulations, including the Local Content Act, the NIMASA and NPA Acts that prescribe indigenizing of workforce. The statement indicated that the federal government and its agencies, especially the Ministry of Transportation and NPA, for the past 4 years have failed to compel the IOCs to not only comply with the statutory regulations, but to also comply with the communique reached at the stakeholders meeting of 2018. The minimum wage is a global issue which determines the least pay to be earned by workers. In Nigeria, especially in the northern part of the country, it is observed that some workers do not earn the minimum wage. Several engagements between organized labor, government and employers have not helped. In April 2019, President Muhammadu Buhari signed into law 30,000 naira minimum wage, which is about $67. I took a fact-finding trip to the northern part of Nigeria, where I met Sahura Humar, a veterinarian who works in the Department of Agriculture at Safe local government area of Zamfara State. Trained as a public health officer, she tearfully tells me she earns 7,500 naira and has been on level 3 for 10 years.
We feel very happy now when the government increased the salary for us. The minimum wage of 30,000 naira. 7,500. That's what they give me every month.
I do go to the farm and other things, struggling up and down, finding one thing or the other to see that I can live with my family and sponsor my children to school and clothing and even provide health. Because I don't have enough money that I will sponsor. I take my children to private school. My children go to private school because I don't have money. I try as much as possible. Those that have finished their secondary school, I take them to COE or any other polytechnics so that I can be able to at least try as much as possible to see that, yes, I pay their school fees. And most of the school fees I used to pay, I either go for loan or I sell my farm product. Then at the end of the year to pay my school fees for those children, for my children that are in COE.
Rabiu Munir, an administrative staff of Bangudu local government area of Zamfara State, says he is a level 13 officer.
So actually,
he tells me he earns 27,000 naira, which is about $58, having spent 20 years in service. Okay, so can you tell me?
If you are assessing poverty, you can see it right now for me. I spent almost 20 years in service, but up to now I'm managing myself. I don't have electricity. It is difficult for me to feed myself in a day. Looking at that issue, if you go to our neighboring state like Katsina, somebody in my grade level can receive more than 70,000 in a month. But look at me here, I'm receiving 27,000 per month. You see the difference is clear. There is gap.
Here is a chart of Rabiu's monthly expenses. From Zamfara to Sokoto and Niger states, as well as others across the country, the story is the same, with slight differences at the local government level. According to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics (NBS), the country's inflation rate jumped to 17.33% in February 2021, the highest since February 2017. It jumped from the 16.47% recorded in January and compared to market forecast of 17.27%. It marks the 18th consecutive month of rising inflation as the coronavirus pandemic led to a plunge in oil prices and a weaker naira. This has raised food and transportation costs. Food inflation topped 21.79%, the highest since October 2005, and air transportation costs surged to 14.1%.
There does not appear any propriety in the federal government imposing the national minimum wage when the resources available to the federal government are at variance with those available to the state government or each state.
The bill seeking transfer of minimum wage from the exclusive to the concurrent legislative list has brought diverse reactions after scaling second reading at the House of Representatives. This led to a meeting between organized labor and the lower legislative chamber. For workers like Sahura, Rabiu and others who earn less than the approved minimum wage, how they and their families survive remains a miracle, with most of them engaging in farming and other skills. On the profile interview segment this week, I will be speaking with the governor of Sokoto State, who also is a vice chairman, Nigerian Governors Forum. It tells me the challenges some of the state governors might be faced with in paying the national minimum wage, and also spoke about the way forward to ensure that workers get a decent wage. We will be right back. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you, Sharon.
Okay, from my experience recently while trying to see the plight of workers, especially at the local government level, there seems to be this trend of some workers not earning up to the national minimum wage. Can you tell us what's your experience as a state government and why are some states struggling to pay the minimum wage?
Well, thank you very much, Sharon. Issues on minimum wage are really very important, and for states, particularly speaking for my own state, when you talk about implementation of minimum wage at the local government level, in Sokoto State, where I preside, yes, we want to pay minimum wage, but when you look at the volume of employees, the number of employees in Sokoto State local government service numbering about 57,000, and then when you implement the minimum wage, you should know what it will come with on heavily on the local government councils. So what we are doing, and we have almost completed, is first to ensure that we have a credible payroll system, and weeding out, of course, ghost workers and realigning, because when I came on board, we realized that there are civil servants in the local government system that are called unscheduled workers. Were just employed generally, maybe 1,000 workers, 2,000 workers per local government, out of patronage, not necessarily based on processes and qualifications, and even the need basis. It was more of a social investment kind of thing. And if you are doing a social investment kind of thing, you are expected to give it some kind of timelines when you will expect that program to wind up. In our own case, those who are brought into the payroll system as unscheduled staff, and then you find situations whereby even the permanent staff were being transferred whimsically from the unscheduled, the scheduled permanent staff to unscheduled, depending on who is who and where your political leaning and persuasion is. So the first thing I did when I came on board was to say, look, every local government worker must be paid no more table payment, must be paid through a bank account. I met a lot of pressure and resistance from some politicians, local politicians, who believed that they were using those as levers of control over some influential people who are on those payrolls that are unscheduled. So they used that to control them. I said, look, everybody must get his pay. And as we speak, we made local government payroll system, now, no more table payment. What we are doing is bank transactions and bank payments to every local government worker, which was not the case. And now we attempted to actually do biometric. We met some resistance. We had to engage NORGE, engage other stakeholders, engage to secure their buy-in. Now they have their we have their buy-in. We are now gradually doing introducing the biometric system. We have gone through the first phase. We're expecting the report from the committee, and then from what I'm hearing, we are likely to discover thousands of ghost workers from that 57,000.
Okay, that brings us to this trend of having scheduled and unscheduled worker. Why do you think there's a need to have this set of workers? Do you think it's as a result of poverty, or do you think it's people, politicians trying to play politics with having people into the system that work for them? Can you specifically tell us how the system works and probably why there is a need to have such in the system?
I don't think it was necessary. It was just a combination of the two factors. As you rightly said, a number of unemployed people, poverty, and then of course the thinking of the government of the day, which I succeeded to do some kind of patronage to some category of people, like empowerment scheme, but it was done the wrong way. Empowerment such as that, in terms of social investments, are given timelines. They are programs, and they're expected to wind up at a certain stage. In this case, you rather found them running concurrently with the permanent staff, and then they termed them unscheduled and scheduled staff. So I think it was possibly a well-intended program, but not properly structured and implemented. And that's why we're trying to see how best. I've assured them that we're not going to lay off people, but we, at the end of the day, are going to make sure that we have first the scheduled staff restored fully, and then we now discuss and engage with unscheduled and see if we are going to run a social investment program, or those of them who have the papers to go back to school, we put them on scholarship, because we give our children in Sokoto State scholarship, both in our tertiary institutions and foreign institutions. And then we task them to go and study and come back. And those that possibly cannot, then we transfer them possibly to either Sokoto Marshall or to some other place, neighborhood watch, where they can be more useful to the system and earning and justify their earnings. So that's what we're doing in Sokoto State at the moment.
At the national level, there's this bill that has killed through second reading, which requests that the national minimum wage issues should be moved from exclusive list to concurrent list. As a former Speaker of the House of Representatives, how would you respond to this?
This is just one of the several issues that we inherited from our previous unitary system of governments in Nigeria, that has been embedded into the constitution of a supposedly federal structured government, which is becoming a major problem for Nigeria. Of course, one of those, as of today, is the policing system of Nigerian Federation, which has only provided for a Nigerian police force. And you cannot have a local a county or local government police. You cannot have a state police. So it's one of those very important issues that are in the Constitution that have not been properly placed and provided for a federal system of government. If you have a unified labor, and you must always negotiate from that point of unification, without allowing states to engage and determine based on their income what they can negotiate with their workers. You know, you are not talking about a federal system. You must be talking about something else. So these are some of the issues that are in the Constitution that needed to be looked at. Maybe those who introduced the bill in the House of Reps should have consulted more broadly. As I said before, I was a former speaker, a sitting governor. I wasn't aware of that bill. There wasn't any position from the Nigerian Governors Forum on that bill. And I believe that it's something that we as a forum should discuss and come up with a position. So I wouldn't want, as a vice chairman of the forum, preempt what the forum may come up with eventually. I would rather prefer a situation whereby, as a forum, we look at it and then come up with our own position.
Which takes us to the state viability. If states are allowed to work more, do you think it would have impact on workers?
When you talk about viability of states, you must also look at what are those minerals or resources that are available to the state, that the state can harness and beef up its income. In my state, for example, Sokoto State, I know for sure that we have a number of valuable mineral deposits that as a state, as it is structured, we cannot just wake up and go into mining and then begin to bring out those things and then begin to market them and then get income. We have to go through the process of getting licenses and bringing in through the federal government. And it's really very difficult. And of course, the issue of insecurity in my state, in other states, in Nigeria, is making it difficult for one to bring in investors from outside Nigeria. And you know, mining has not gotten to any level as a form of investment in Nigeria by Nigerians. When you talk about mining, you must bring in people, you must bring in equipment, you must bring in virtually almost everything from outside Nigeria except possibly some human resources. So these are the challenges that states are facing. But I can assure you that when you look at the human, material resource that are available in every state, including, of course, agriculture, water bodies, animal husbandry, poultry, and all of that, fisheries, every state in Nigeria, realizing its potentials, can stand on its own. But the question is the process. So it gives more credence, all of this give more credence, as I've said, to the question of restructuring. So we need to make Nigeria work. And the only way we can make Nigeria work is to sit down and engage and then come up with practical steps that can make Nigeria work. But states as they are now, if not for 2-3 states, I'm sure most of the states are not viable. They are not viable, not because they don't have the resources, as I said, either mineral resources, either human resources, but because there are some inhibitions in our laws that are making it almost impossible for states to realize those potential. For now, I would rather propose a situation whereby we devolve more to the states and review the revenue sharing formula of the country and give more of these resources to local governments, states, than the federal government.
So finally, looking at the engagement of workers at the state level, would you say that they can engage properly in terms of negotiation? Perhaps if we find ourselves in that situation whereby states are allowed to pay what they can afford.
Oh yeah, sure. Speaking for the workers and workforce in Sokoto, they do very well have the capacity to engage, to discuss, and even give government ideas on how to go about generating revenue and beefing up their earnings. I believe that. I believe so because as we speak now, we are turning around the Board of Internal Revenue in the state, and the Board of Internal Revenue is doing a great job, and we're looking forward to a situation whereby the Board of Internal Revenue in Sokoto State will now be generating enough money and resources for the payment of salaries without waiting for FAC. That's our target. And we didn't bring in people from outside Sokoto State to come and do this work. The workforce in the state is what has been mobilized, sensitized, and then given proper training for us to achieve this objective. So I see the same thing happening at local government level. They are very resourceful, and the bureaucracy in the state is very strong and highly organized, very well skilled, and with the right engagement, with the right remuneration, with the right encouragement, we can achieve that.
And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.